We'll get it going on. Ryan, what's up, man? Skyline High School. YouTube, what's going on? TikTok's already giving me crap. I am sunburnt, which is obvious. Yesterday, I spent filming content with a first-round pick in this year's fantasy lineup for all of us, a rapper that's on all of our playlists, a different quarterback who's been all over our news headlines the past week. And I know how annoying that is. Like Max just tell us who you were filming content with. I'm not allowed to release it until September, so stick around there. But it was a fun day yesterday. But I was expecting it to be indoors, and it was not. So this big ass 5-head has red sunburnt all over. And we made a mistake there. I can't be doing that, you know. Dermatologist will not be happy with me today, so paying the price for that. We got some new folks on YouTube. Former, what's going on? Scott, great to see you again, though. Kanak, what's going on? A lot of messages. Lord Jimbo, what's going on? Yes, I do need a sombrero. I need some aloe, too. Let's see what questions we got. I don't understand how Carson Wentz hasn't been signed to an NFL team yet. Yeah, it's a pretty gnarly downfall for him. I respected his comments at Super Bowl week being like, yo, you going back to the Eagles reunion? And he's like, dude, why? Like, it's not this whole like sunshine and rainbow situation for Carson Wentz, which I get that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like nowadays in the NFL, you'd rather save your backup quarterback spot for a guy with high upside. And Carson Wentz is the exact opposite of a quarterback with high upside. But given that football is the most violent sport, maybe outside of UFC, I feel like he'll get hired. He'll get a contract at some point. Like maybe even it's later on in the season, but feels like his days are numbered. Just the reality of the situation. Melissa, I recognize you. Good to see you again on TikTok. What was your favorite road environment to play in? I mean, Penn State at Penn State in a rivalry game as a Pitt Panther was electric. That's the only like big time road environment that I guess. I only started so many games and only so many games on the road. So as a starter, it obviously hits different than a backup. But Jerry's World in Dallas is your first career start. Not too shabby. Going back to the University of Washington was great. I grew up, in their backyard. So it was cool to come back on enemy territory in the greatest setting in college football. Oregon was cool, but we got them during a day game, so it wasn't as electric. We also weren't as good that year, so it was like a double whammy for not being as electric. Virginia Tech was the first game after I got hurt at Pitt. That is rocking, and it's super cool the way that Virginia Tech, if you're building the guest stadium or you're renovating, if you are renovating your stadium, please go look at Virginia Tech and how they situated their like visiting stadium or visiting locker room, because you walk out, you turn the corner, first thing you see is it's like, oh shit. They also time it so you walk out right when they do the Enter Sandman moment. Electric. And the tunnel is physically big, so it's easy for fans to heckle you. Virginia Tech gets it. Virginia Tech's a cool atmosphere. Syracuse, sneaky cool, because it's very old school. It reminds me of the high school dome I used to play in, the Tacoma Dome, which is probably not a compliment for Syracuse fans, but it's cool in that like the locker room is literally 15 steps away from being on the turf. So it's like very much just like you're right in the action. Notre Dame's sick too. Their fans will heckle the crap out of you. Notre Dame doesn't turn on the hot water. Some BS stuff, but a classic move. I weirdly respect it, but they don't turn on the hot water. So you play in a freezing game in North Bend, and then hot water's not working. Sorry, USC, you're screwed. So I respect the banter. What do you think about the difference in the 2024 versus 2025 QB class? And what do you think of all the first round picks last year would have gone ahead of Cam Ward this year? Drew? Aaron Rodgers guy. Love it, Drew. Don't recognize the username. Thanks for the question. Yeah, my take is this. I think Cam Ward would have gone after Michael Penix, and I think when push comes to shove, he would have gone ahead. He would have gone ahead of Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy. Those of you guys that follow my lives know that I'm not as high on JJ McCarthy as a lot of people. Not trying to be a hater. I just think that's the reality of when you were not forced to be the dude in college. That gives me great concern when you get to the NFL. And I also think we're doing revisionist history with Bo Nix. There was a lot of people that were lukewarm on Bo Nix, and I was one of them. I thought he was a great college quarterback. I thought he took advantage of, being in college for 5 years. So that 5th year at Oregon, he was efficient, clean, and a phenomenal college quarterback. I had concerns about how he would transition to the NFL. He's proven me wrong. Interested to see how much ceiling left he has to tap into, because that'll be interesting. Like, does he end up being more of like a Jordan Love kind of guy, or does he start getting into like the Herbert conversation? We'll see. I'm not there yet for Bo Nix, but I say revisionist history because I think when push comes to shove, Cam Ward would have gone ahead of Bo Nix, which would have been would have gone ahead of Bo Nix, like if 2025 Cam Ward and 2024 Bo Nix were in the same class. Drew, I think that's the essence of your question. People now are saying, oh, Cam Ward would have gone after all 6 of those guys. Bruh. Nah. You ain't taking J.J. McCarthy over with Cam Ward. Not with what Cam Ward did at Miami. Not with what he did at Miami. So I think credit for Cam for coming back to school. I've said this. I think there should be a Harvard Business Review case study done on Cam Ward that they should study 5 years from now about the value of NIL salaries, the trade-off for mid-round quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are not guaranteed to be first-round picks. I mean, the money is like night and day. And this opens up the Quinn Ewers conversation too, of like, yo, Quinn, you could have gone to Miami this year and got paid $4.5 million. Instead, you go, 7th round in the NFL? I totally get it. He wants his legacy to be a Texas Longhorn through and through. I totally get that. I'd respect that genuinely. But I will say, as a guy who transferred away and did not do anything remotely close to what Quinn Ewers did in college, USC welcomed me back. There's a reason I got 2 helmets there. I'm closer to the USC program now than I am a Pitt program, and I'm a transfer. Same thing would have happened with Quinn Ewers. He would have gone back, lived in Texas, and 10 years from now, people probably would have forgot that he transferred to Miami. Or it wouldn't have been viewed negatively, and he'd have, an extra $3 million in his bank account? Not too bad. Not too bad. So it'll be interesting. TikTok, what you got for me? Noah's been active in the chat. There should also be a case study on Carson Wentz, in my opinion. He's so great. I don't care how he got here. Yeah, it's super interesting. When you asked that Carson Wentz question, sorry, I can't talk. It got me thinking, because I've been thinking about doing a video on like Cam Newton's steep decline, and not trying to be like, oh, I'm trying to get after Cam Newton, but it's interesting of how quickly he leveled off, or his value diminished. And same with Russ. Russ went from a perennial Pro Bowler, perennial top 10 quarterback in the league, to 2 seasons later having to start for a starting job. That like never happens in the NFL, especially after the era of Rodgers sitting for 2 decades, Ben Roethlisberger sitting for 15 years at their same franchise, Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. Like, usually when you hit on a guy, he's there for 10, 15 years. Russ has had a steep downfall. Cam Newton had a steep downfall. I know he got injured. I know he relied on athleticism in his game, and that's harder to sustain. Carson Wentz, injury again, steep downfall. But these guys were dudes. These guys, those 3 guys that I just mentioned, 2 MVPs and a Super Bowl MVP or Super Bowl winning quarterback. This is big time. These are big time dudes. That it's so unique, those 3 dudes, how steep their decline was. I don't know if there's a full content piece in there, but it's got the juices rolling. Apple user says Russ is better than me, Cam is better than me, and I'm assuming you're saying Wentz is better than me. Yeah, no surprise. Those guys were dudes. What a quote. Who is that? Apple user coming in with some heat today. Day oneers, Johan, yes sir, good to see you. Travis Wilson or Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I guess that one, Travis, good to see you as well. Again, the Achilles, I put the Achilles injury in like a whole different bucket. Like, to me, you have an Achilles injury. If you get back to your normal self, then that's all, playing with house money. I kind of expect you to have a steep downfall when you have an Achilles injury. And I guess the same could go for a throwing shoulder injury, which that's what Cam had too. I lived that firsthand. All those guys you mentioned had serious problems over the middle of the field. They were used to run threat occupying linebackers and safeties. It's definitely true with Russ. Cam, I agree with that. Carson Wentz. Yeah, Carson Wentz's downfall is interesting. I don't really know why it happened because like legs were part of his game, but not like that much. It's an interesting take. I don't know if I'll steal it, but it's an interesting take. Siobhan, hello. Enjoying life. What a username. We had some weird usernames last week. It's also super interesting. TikTok. The numbers on TikTok are like way, way, way down compared to last Thursday. I feel like we've actually had better questions today. That's really interesting. YouTube, we're rocking and roll. There we go. Joseph R. Biden, back at it. I recognize you from yesterday. These Reclamation Project QBs, Mayfield, Darnold, Newton could have been Cunningham 2.0, but never got the opportunity. New England was a horrible place for him. I always wonder how Cam Newton's career would have played out if he wasn't such a big personality. And this opens up a whole can of worms, but it's just hard to have Cam Newton be your backup quarterback. That's just the reality of the situation. It taps into some of the same concerns around why Shedeur fell into the draft. It's just hard to have that big of a presence when you're trying to build your starter, eliminate distractions. Not saying Cam is a distraction, not saying Shedeur Sanders himself is a distraction, but all the branding they bring into the locker room, the media will spin as a distraction. You get both. You want to be a big brand, big media, big voice, love it. Not saying you yourself are a distraction, but by doing that in today's 24/7 media cycle, everyone has access to your social media. It's just hard to do. It's hard to be a backup quarterback in that situation. Would Cam have had a longer leash at some of those with the Patriots or elsewhere? Probably. One of these days, I'm going to start a podcast around or do a series, have a podcast, do a series around like failure. I think it's super interesting. I've mentioned this before that like people clam up when you talk about failure. A lot of people, I'm not one of them, say, oh, failure doesn't exist. It's all about, learning from those opportunities kind of thing. I think it's a positive spin, but it's interesting to me how our society like really doesn't like that word. Yet it's such a part of like everyday life and pursuing your career and aspirations in sports and all that it's like funny that we like don't acknowledge that. And it'd be cool to do a series like on failure and like talk to guys like Cam Newton would be one of them. Not saying Cam Newton is a failure, but I think diving into like the back half of his NFL career or the back portion of his NFL career and like adjusting to like what that was and transitioning away, I think that'd be fascinating. But then also like diving into like what was the other site in 1998 that was competing with Amazon, like the eBay or whatever, like the eBay found like, dude, where did you mess up? And Amazon capitalized and like dive into that interview of like, dude, because I talk about it, like my playing career or like AOL's CEO that failed to make the necessary moves in the early 2000s, like having to sit down with him of like, dude, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? I think that podcast series would be so interesting. Diving into like where you failed. Not that you're a failure, but the opposite of success is failure. That's very like blunt and like matter of fact of me. But so for every person that has success, there's another person that failed. I get it. Everyone nets out differently with that word, but exploring that would be fascinating. Andrew LZ, all podcasts produce it for you. If you're in that game, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm bad with TikTok DMs. TikTok's fine. I'll look for it, but shoot me a note. It'd be fun. It was cool. Someone hit me up today on YouTube. It was a YouTuber that has like a similar following to me. I have 40K subs on YouTube, so not like small, but definitely not big. He wants to do like a day in the life crossover within like tapping into like me reflecting on my football journey kind of concept, which could be cool. I'm always like, dude, you want to do a day in life with me? Like Do we want to do like, you want to like tee it up and strategically place it on a day where you have like a bunch of events and it'd be like, yo, I'm going golfing, then I got this event, then I got this dinner, which is like great and like happens obviously. Or do you do like a true day in the life where it's like, you know, today is like very much like an administrative email inbox sitting at my desk kind of day, which is probably more relatable. I don't know. We'll dive into that. Mr. Milamo, I don't recognize your username. Welcome. What is your favorite modern NFL player? Tish, what's up, man? Happy belated. Everyone go wish Satish, who is a much bigger creator than me, a happy belated birthday. Comedy. Favorite modern NFL player? This is a good question because I'm not really like a fan. I'm not like, when you're an analyst and, you know, when you play at a higher level, it's harder to become like a fan per se. My former teammate Leonard Williams, always pulling for him. Always pulling for Darnold, but it's weird saying Darnold's my favorite NFL player. We can't be saying that. It's a good question. I want to give you guys a real answer here. Probably Stafford. Probably Matt Stafford. I respect his guts. He's so fun to watch in the film. I respect his longevity. I'm kind of pulling for him to get one last like if he has 2 more seasons of what he's been doing the past 5 years, his stats I think will get him into the Hall of Fame. That's an interesting, like, no questions asked. I think if he has just like 1 more modest year, he's still in that equation. So respect his guts, respect his toughness. That game when he returned to Detroit in the playoffs was electric. Probably Stafford. I saw him at a Chipotle once in LA, just chilling. It was kind of cool seeing him out in the wild. A guy with the username Max calling me Joe Burrow. What's good? What's good, Max? From one Max to another. Better first season as a starter, Arch or Sayan? I think it's going to be Arch because I think Arch is just better than Sayan, and Arch has had more experience. Sayan, it'll be very interesting to see how he handles all that pressure. I've said this line before, but keep an eye out for Texas's over-under win total this year because Vegas has it at 10 or 10.5. A big reason that it's 10.5, and I don't think it's 11.5, is they're expecting Texas to lose on the road at Ohio State. If they win on the road at Ohio State, then they would have the cushion of 2 more losses the rest of the year. I like those odds. Even in the SEC. Just keep an eye on that. If you believe Texas is going to beat Ohio State on the road, Ohio State has all those guys to replace. Even though it's on the road, I get it. Hey, Arch is new, but he's like not really new kind of thing. That's a line that's very intriguing to me because I think Texas, like Oregon, to me, they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to reload. They're going to be right there. Ohio State's going to be really good. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like I know more about their quarterback situations, Texas and Oregon. You might be sitting there being like, Max, what you talking about? Like all 3 of those guys have brand new starters. I called Dante Moore's first start ever at UCLA versus, what was that? Central or like that random directional North Carolina school. I think he's going to have a big year. But point being, Texas and Oregon, they're going to be in the hunt for sure, no matter what. Ohio State should be, but I don't think it's a no matter what kind of thing. Tyler says, Walmart Joe Burrow looking. So, okay, I'm trying to come up with like a fun game for my lives of like, so the past week, for those of you guys that have been local, I've been like starting like a quota of like, hey, once we reach 10 Joe Burrow references, because it happens every single week. I get it. New people come on the TikTok for you live and they, think they're brand new, coming up with some of the one-liners. But like a quota of 10, and then like the 11th person, I'll like send them something, or like the 11th person that says it, like it's like a radio call-in thing of like, this is the 10th caller, you get da-da-da. Because I'd be getting some cool free stuff. Under Armour gave me a whole little swag pack that love Under Armour. Not going to use it all though. So I could be giving those out. Jaden, appreciate it, man. Says your videos are low key my favorite on YouTube right now. we got low numbers today on TikTok Live for some reason, but the 20 of you guys that are there, even if you leave and go check out the YouTube, would make my heart happy. Next video that should be coming out either tomorrow or Saturday. We're a little delayed on that. It's titled "Why Quarterbacks Love Mud," and I make the perfect football using quarterback mud. And then surprise, surprise, at the end, I linked up with an NFL starting quarterback that you'll have to watch the video to find out. And he reviewed my quarterback mud recipe. This is the football actually right here, funny enough. So keep an eye out for that. One of the 32. I guess there's not 32 guaranteed starting quarterbacks in the NFL. There's probably 27 guaranteed starting quarterbacks. Colts is not guaranteed. Browns is not guaranteed. Giants is not guaranteed. Who else am I missing? Those three schools. So of the 20, or those three teams, of the 27 guaranteed starting quarterbacks, one of them rated this football. It'll be at the end of that YouTube video. I be plugging stuff today. Pause. But I know it's annoying, but I got to do what I got to do, you know. Bro Burrow, there you go, Lord Jimbo and Scott, the OGs, man. Fight on 5 says, what's your prediction for USC's record next year? Go check out Instagram. I think the Big Ten Network may have posted it to TikTok, but I did a prediction for them for the Big Ten Network social channels. So go check that out, but I'll give you the rundown right here. I predicted USC 8-4. I think they lose to Nebraska on the road. I think they win versus Michigan. They beat Michigan. But they lose to Nebraska on the road. They lose to Oregon on the road. They lose to Illinois on the road. And they lose to Notre Dame on the road, at home. I forget where that game's at. But those four games. Jacob Berger, fight on. Which, I know is annoying for USC fans. One, I can't be a homer. But I also feel like that's totally fair. Every single year USC loses a game they shouldn't. Dude, I don't even know if they're going to be – I don't even know if they'd be favored right now versus Nebraska on the road. So, I don't even know. That's not even a stretch. But it is taking the over. 8 wins is taking the over on USC, 7.5. On that note, too, these lives will also probably pop off and have way more traction during the season. I'll keep them up. Whatever questions you guys got. I usually am on a flight Thursday to call games, so I might have to change the Thursday time, but Tuesday noon is pretty solid. So in the back of your mind, keep that in your back of your mind. I'll have a broadcasting update for you guys here probably in a month or so of what's to come and what games and where I'm calling them in the next month. So stay tuned, maybe a month or 6 weeks. I don't even know, but stay tuned for that. Penn State owns USC. Yo, I was looking at Penn State's schedule yesterday. Check this out. This is the year for Penn State. If it's not this year, it might not be ever for James Franklin. Check this out. And this is where YouTube, I gotta get the different interface so I can share my screen and do the whole streaming thing. Penn State plays Oregon. They go Nevada, FIU, Villanova. Goodness gracious, 3-0. Then Oregon. All right. Then UCLA, Northwestern, Iowa, then Ohio State. Gotcha. But they do not have – oh, wait, I'm tripping. I missed Ohio State then. For some reason, I didn't think they were playing Ohio State. I'm tripping. My bad. But I guess they don't have USC. They don't have Nebraska. I'm tripping. Sorry, guys. Wait, why did I think that? Why did I think that? I'm tripping. Sorry, guys. There's probably some Penn State fan in the chat being like, Max, what are you talking about? You got Ohio State on the road and Oregon on the road, so that's no cakewalk. But I guess no USC, no Michigan, no, they got Nebraska. Yeah, I'm out of my mind. See, sorry, guys. Sorry. They have a 2-game schedule, Oregon and Ohio State. Yeah, pretty much. I feel like that's the recipe for James Franklin every single year. Scott Ordway, an OG. Even though, Scott, I don't know if I told you this, not a Warriors guy. My wife is, but not a Warriors guy. Scott, with the question of the day so far, that's another one. Gifting you guys, if you ask the best question or my favorite question for the day, again, giving you guys something, that's another one I'm thinking for the fall because that'd be fun. I got a bunch of stuff around here. Some USC swag, some Travis Matthew golf swag. He asked, do you read defenses more as a broadcaster to pick them apart compared to your playing days? No. Reading defenses as a player was mandatory every single play, every single snap that you lined up. As a broadcaster, there's so much going on that I try to read defenses because I think it's super important to ultimately describe what you're telling the viewer. Side note, broadcasting pet peeve of mine that football hardos will appreciate. When you're listening to a broadcast and they go an ISO shot on the receiver and the corner, like, battling over a football, and the broadcaster goes, and you got man-to-man coverage on the outside. I would say a third of the time they say that, they're dead wrong. Just because it's one-on-one corner and a receiver does not mean it's man coverage. It could be quarters, but because the receiver went vertical, that's why it looks like it's man-to-man coverage. It could be press cover 3. That's not man-to-man coverage. It's something I can't stand as a former quarterback, and I try to pride myself on telling the viewer in that situation, not, hey, it's man-to-man coverage. It's, no, they're going to cover 3 shell and they're battling one-on-one right there. That's a difference. That's difference. Telling the viewer it's man-to-man coverage is a lie a third of the time when it's an outside lane shot. Something just to keep your mind on. If the corner's head up, or if the corner's inside leverage to the receiver, all right, and he's looking dead at the receiver, that's man-to-man coverage. But oftentimes it's not that way. Sorry, I'm reading comments. I think Clemson versus South Carolina will be a top 7 rivalry game for sure. I'll tell you this. USC might take all the heat if the USC Notre Dame rivalry folds. But if they fold and they take all the heat and they provide some air support cover fire, the Clemson South Carolina rivalry, that could be next. That could be next. I was on campus at Clemson last fall, and I said that take to a Clemson person, and they looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. Like, oh, no, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. Boy, I worked in the Pac-12. I worked in the Pac-12 network. I remember when people said, oh, that'll never happen. Are you kidding me? There's no way Oregon and Washington ever go to the Big Ten. There's no way USC and UCLA ever go to the Big Ten. I know it's different, a cross-sectional rivalry from USC and Notre Dame compared to a in-state rivalry between South Carolina and Clemson. But what happened last year? South Carolina had an argument, a backdoor argument to potentially be in the playoff or whatever. I don't agree with that, but they had they could make their little case. Well, they were left on the outside looking in. What happens if that happens again? And they're looking, dude, why are we playing Clemson again? It's only upside for Clemson. South Carolina doesn't need that game to prove the validity of their schedule. I know it's in state. I totally get it. I know that would absolutely suck. I'm with you. But if the USC Notre Dame rivalry folds, Clemson, South Carolina, better look out. Better look out. Mac, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man. OKC, I do not work at Barstool. I'm not cool enough, I guess, OKC guy. Is that you big Thunder guy? I'm a big Sonics guy. It's been a tough week for us. Max, were you boys with Tate Martell at all? I saw on Elite 11. Undefeated Edits. I was at Elite 11 last week. They had me speak to the quarterbacks for half an hour. That video will be out on YouTube hopefully next week. I talked about my journey, my story, some lessons learned, and then how I would approach social media if I was a top 15 quarterback in the country, making minimum 6 figures, which is absolutely bonkers. There's 2 guys making 7 figures in that. That's absolutely crazy. What'd you ask me, boys with Tate Martell? I used to, am I boys with him? No, but I used to train with him. He would come out in the late spring and summer when I was at USC. We had the same quarterback coach. Shout out Steve Clarkson. And we would train at a Pasadena high school in the grass field. Our quarterback coach had these drills that they sucked, but they're great drills. It was called it was soccer and tennis. So he would pretend like you're on a tennis court, and then he would throw the football like from one corner, like you were making. back corner, then front corner, back corner, then front corner. And it was a conditioning exercise. You had to go front, back, and you're getting absolutely torched conditioning wise. But it was a drill to like keep your form while you're freaking gassed. Also conditioning, but then also like get the ball out quick and accurately and like be off balance, out of pocket, out of rhythm. Great drill. And then the soccer was just like you're a soccer goalie and you would like toss footballs and you'd have to like save the football, but then get back up and toss it real quick. It was a drill, like a very new school drill of just being off balance, different arm motions, feet not set, all that, but it would suck. And I remember those training sessions, true football people will appreciate this reference. Those training sessions wasn't every time, but it was me, Tate Martell, Wilton Spate, Michigan's quarterback who finished at UCLA, and then Shea Patterson, Michigan's quarterback. And it's funny, Shea and Tate were high schoolers. Wilton hadn't popped off, or like Wilton hadn't started yet. And I was, it's funny, like I was like this is weird. I was like the big dog in that group because I was like the college quarterback, and then they all had better college careers than me outside of Tate. But to bring us full circle, I know a lot of you guys probably aren't hanging this full live, but that podcast series I was talking about, Tate Martell would be a great guest on that. I don't know what he's doing. But he'd be a great guest on that. Travis Wilson, how much time would you say you dedicate to content creation each week? Everything from shooting content, editing, lives, et cetera, et cetera. I would say probably 20 to 30 hours. It's a lot. I have a team that works with me that helps with editing and some of the scripting, but it's a lot of time. During the season, it's probably more like 25 hours and then another 25 hours just prepping and prepping for the game I'm calling and just like media hits and all that. It's a lot, though, for sure. Picking chicken. How often do I get mistaken for Joe Burrow? On this live, it's probably been, 25 times? And I've been on live for 30 minutes? It's been a little while. Thoughts on Garrett Nussmeier? Is having him win the Heisman a hot take? That's not a hot take. Big fan of Garrett Nussmeier. Super high on him. My take with Garrett Nussmeier, I've said this on a few different lives, is give him a run game so he doesn't have to be in a pass first, run as like a keep the defense honest type of vibe. You give him a run game and take pressure off of defenses consistently dropping 7 on him. Garrett Nussmeier could light it up. I know he had some turnovers and whatnot, but you can tell he's got an innate sense for timing and getting the ball out of his hands and throwing guys open. He makes some big-time throws. I'm super high on Garrett Nussmeier. I met Garrett when he was a second grader. His dad was the first coach to ever offer me a scholarship. Shout out Nuss. If somehow you see this, love Nuss. They came to my high school's football camp, and I met him when he was a little second grader, and then now we're getting old over here, and he's a little baller. Who do I got winning the Natty? Sorry, Fahim, my bad. Walter Picks, what's going on? Who do I got winning the Natty? I don't really have a strong take here. I don't want to just throw something out. I know it's like a Bush League way to do it, but let me get back to you on that. Max, what college football teams do you think will underperform this year? Enjoying life. Love the question. Once I get into my hey, I'll give something out for the best question vibe, which I'll gotta sort that out. This might have won it. I think Indiana will underperform this year. I think they're riding the coattails from last year. I think it's hard to replicate that from last year. I think we're getting I love Fernando Mendoza. If you happen to see this, Fernando Mendoza, I love your game. It's been fun calling. I've called like 3 or 4 of his games, but I think to put him right now in like NFL conversations is way ahead of the mark. So I think Indiana's one team. Who else is out there? Syracuse is another. People are high on Fran Brown. I totally get that. Fran Brown's a great coach, great recruiter. We are underestimating how important Kyle McCord was for that offense. I think Syracuse doesn't ascend at the way people think they will. I don't know if people have expectations with UCLA and Nico Yamaleyava, but Big Ten's brutal, man. I think that could be that. He's not going to come and save that program. He might do some nice things and look like a solid college quarterback, but I don't think he comes in and saves that program. SEC, what do we got SEC wise? There's only so many wins to go around. Only so many wins to go around. Maybe Florida. I'll go Florida. I just think I love DJ Lagway's game, but you know, I gotta be careful. I love DJ Lagway's game, but there's a lot of SEC teams that have big expectations. Only so many wins to go around. Like let's look at Florida's schedule, and like let me walk you through this. Again, it's one of those things. We're so hyped on DJ Lagway. We're so hyped on what we saw the back end of last year. But you got LIU. I don't even know what school that is. What school is LIU? Am I missing something? They don't even have a logo on Google. Whatever. South Florida, week 2. Then you got LSU. LSU fans think they should win that game. You got Miami. Miami fans think they should win that game. Texas fans think they should win that game. A&M fans hope they win that game. That's Florida at A&M. Oh, baby. So A&M fans think, yeah, we should get after them there. Then you got Mississippi State. Then you got Georgia. Then you got Kentucky. Then you got Ole Miss. That's no joke. At Ole Miss. And then Tennessee. And then Florida State. Bro. Florida. That's a good answer by me. I'll go Florida with that one. Johan, yeah. Is it Long Island? What is that? What is LIU? Am I tripping? LIU Sharks? Content piece, the team with the easiest road regular season schedule to the playoffs. That is a good content piece. I've been talking with a guy too that is a data analytics expert that I'm potentially thinking about bringing into my my content to level it up even more and like pursue some content angles that you can't do without having like deep data, especially for those of you guys on long form that are like seeing my deep dives. There's takes that I have that only work if they're supported by data. Like just for example, but Travis, not to hijack your point, that's a great idea. There's definitely something to run with that. But like one thing I always think about is, dude, when I was in college, every single summer, we had like 3 to 5 guys that were always on the fence of whether or not they were going to be eligible for the football season. And every year we had like one guy that it was never like super public because you don't want to like just rag on a student athlete who's 18, 19 years old that can't pass classes. But there's always like one guy that was like ineligible. You never, ever hear of guys being ineligible nowadays. And with the transfer portal, you're telling me when I was playing, we had like 3 to 5 guys that had to take summer school to stay eligible, and they were staying at USC. They were guys that were at USC for 3, 4, 5 years. You're telling me now with all the transfer portal and all the movements and guys not staying through finals, not finishing credits, we never, ever hear about guys being ineligible. So to your point or my point, taking your point about using data analytics, I'd love to do a YouTube video on like, why the F are people, we never hear of guys being ineligible. Like, what's the workaround there? Are we just aloof to it, naive to it? Are schools saying, hey, if I'm going to, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. If a booster is saying, yo, I'll give you $100,000 to come to this school. Hey, and president of the school, you better make sure this guy's eligible. I don't care if he has to be a sociology major or not. You better get him eligible. My bad. You better get him eligible. We never hear about that. So like that's something I'd want to pursue. Another angle too. I was listening to the CEO of the NCAA did a sit down with the Wall Street Journal, and the poor Wall Street Journal woman who was interviewing him, you can tell she understands football and sports, but she doesn't understand like the nuances of, I won't say that. She did not press him on the hard questions because it was like basically a sales pitch for the CEO of the NCAA being like, oh, how this new revenue sharing landscape is going to help college athletics and revolutionize things. And no one cares. The biggest announcement in the past 20 years for the NCAA came out 3 weeks ago and no one cares at all. So one, that's maybe a content piece as well with revenue sharing and like the new framework there. But the second piece of that is the reason I brought it up is the CEO of the NCAA was saying how a third of guys that hop into the transfer portal don't find a landing spot. That is crazy. We never hear those stories because those guys don't land anywhere. They're probably embarrassed to make videos about it. They don't have the platform to share their story. That's wild to me. But to the data analytics point, like going back and actually tracking that and building out a long form YouTube video on, dude, this is crazy. A third of guys that hop into the portal, per the CEO of the NCAA, don't find a landing spot. The ripple effect of that, of guys not getting their degree, the ripple effect of in having a college degree is probably overrated to start with. But when you have a degree, you're more inclined to use that degree and get in high paying jobs. And if without it, you go down what's comfortable, what's easy, which for a lot of my former teammates is not, maximizing the opportunities you had in college. And so to bring this full circle, if you're not finding a landing spot, it's a third of guys that, oh, it sounds good, right? Oh, we'll give you a scholarship and we'll pay for your tuition. Well, no, you won't, because you didn't find anywhere to land. So these guys are getting screwed. Anyways, exploring the whole ripple effects of all that and trying to get ahead of it, because I'm saying it now. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, there's going to be some 60 Minutes interview or some cover of the New York Times about how, the catastrophe of college sports. And they're going to look at how many guys or girls get absolutely hosed by the transfer portal. It's only a matter of time. It's not if, it's only a matter of time. It's the reality. It's business. These guys are 18-year-old adults, but also kids. There's certainly a downside to it all. Osiris, I saw you on Seahawks Forever. Love your content. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. The Seahawks Forever was shouting me out on YouTube. I did a big Jalen Milroe breakdown. Super proud of that video. It's a take that I love. I think the Seahawks are absolutely doofuses if they have Jalen Milroe sit on the bench the whole year. I'm Team Sam Darnold. I think he'll have a big year, but you just drafted Jalen Milroe. Why did you draft him in the third round? Because he's an elite athlete. You did not draft him in the third round because he's an elite pocket passer. But you're scared to put him in there in a Taysom Hill type role, which is what I argue in that video. You're scared to do that because of the optics and just the reality of when you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one and all that. It's the NFL. I think Jalen Milroe should certainly have a goal line package. He should have a third and short package, and he should have a package when you're in punt fringe zone and you're not sure if you should punt or not. The odds already say go for it on fourth. I guarantee the data analytics folks would say go for it on fourth way more if you have Jalen Milroe as your weapon and you're sitting on the 46-yard line on 4th and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 3. And I make the case and I go back and watch, to bring it full circle, I watch how the Saints used Taysom Hill in 2018 and 2019, and I pull plays of how the Saints used Taysom Hill in 2018 and 2019 and found the same plays from last year with how Bama used Jalen Milroe and combined them. And I was like, here you go, Seahawks. Here's your blueprint for how to use them this year. Those of you guys that are OGs know that I thought Jalen Milroe should have gone back to school. He would have been the best returning college quarterback in the land. I don't know why he left for the NFL. He could have easily been a third-round pick the next year. He needs to develop a lot as a passer. Seems like a great kid. I'm rooting for him. I am a Seahawks fan, but, that's my take there. Side note, that mud video I was talking about that's coming out on YouTube, the new viewers, YouTube video, making the perfect NFL quarterback. I have an NFL starting quarterback review this football at the end of the video to see if I'm actually making the perfect football. The recipe is the Seahawks recipe. I got my hands on it. It's the exact Seahawks mud recipe. So check that out. Thoughts on Bellevue? Not a Bellevue guy. It's my rivalry. Except my parents live in Bellevue, so I guess I got love for that. What else we got? Love the chatter in the YouTube chat. Love it. Makes me happy. The Victory Degree. Love the question. Don't recognize the username too. Victory Degree. Welcome. What's the future of sports media? Whew. Maybe that's another YouTube video. I read that article, Victory Degree. I don't know if you saw it, but how college football is tracking for a pay-per-view model. That makes me nervous, man. That makes me really, really, really nervous. The short answer is I don't know. I have some thoughts, though. I think, where do I start with this thing? So from a talk show standpoint, I think it's gonna the trajectory we're on is if you're a sports personality, it's going to be how can I build a platform where I control the platform and I don't rely on an ESPN or a Fox to have that platform. To say it differently, 10 years ago, the path for every sports personality was how can I get on ESPN and Fox? How can I have a talk show there? How can I get on Sirius XM radio? I think 5-10 years, it's already in motion. You see it with Shannon Sharp. You see it with Stephen A. Smith. You see it in some capacity with Pat McAfee. But 5-10 years from now, it's going to be how can I build out my ideal man cave setup and hire the producers and hire the thought leaders and have all the bells and whistles. But I do it in my man cave, living in the city that I want, filming when I want, and it's more of an evergreen show. It's less of the suit and tie buttoned up. And I think that's going to be more and more of the wave because take a step outside of sports media. I think there's a greater awareness in Gen Zs and millennials for just like quality of life and just not having work be the end all be all. And so with that comes, hey, I want to talk sports, but I don't necessarily want to live there or be on that schedule. And I want to control what I talk about. And I also think it makes for better content, and viewers like you guys are going to crave content that's more off the cuff and natural and raw rather than like the tailored teed up linear sports model. I know for a guy like me, I love the occasional ESPN and Fox. I watch their stuff on YouTube every single day, but I never sit down and turn on SportsCenter. Never sit down and turn on Pat McAfee. I see the clips. I will turn on SVP at night on like Sunday nights after Sunday Night Football, but that's how I see, like the trajectory of talk shows, the trajectory of games. This is where I'm a little bit different than other people. So everyone thinks we're heading towards a model of like the top 30 or 40 teams breaking off and making their own like division or league, at least in college football. The problem with that is and they think that ESPN and Fox are going to run the show. You might say it's the NCAA, you might say it's SEC and the Big Ten, but it's really Fox and ESPN and a lot of these networks. The concern with having the top 30 and 40 teams break off for college football, in my opinion, is a huge value for ESPN and Fox is the game inventory itself. So it's not necessarily the fact that they, are having Alabama versus Texas. It's that they have the inventory slot of North Carolina, Georgia Tech later on that afternoon that then they can sell more ads into. And the problem with the top 30 or 40 teams breaking off is you're seeing out West. I'm a West Coast guy. You naturally say, hey, teams 41 through 90 no longer matter, right? Oregon State fans are feeling that right now. 5 years ago, the games they were going to were USC, Washington, UCLA, and Arizona. Now it's San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, and whatever, For the Oregon State fan, it's like, all right, well then now like it just doesn't feel like this matters. That's how it'll be for teams 41 through 90 in this hypothetical land that I'm presenting. Because of that, and because of how important the inventory for Fox and ESPN are, I do think they're going to be motivated to create a structure where you still are keeping teams 40 through 80 involved. So you're still keeping teams like, Syracuse, Pitt, Stanford, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, like active, involved, and engaged in the system. The dream world would be relegation. I think that's hard to figure out. I think that would be phenomenal. That would be absolutely epic. And I hope like a Mark Cuban figurehead comes in and says, hey, I got a new business. We're going to call it the College Football League. It's going to be a relegation model and you can win. It could be a win-win for all. But that's a long-winded way of saying I do think it'll stay in a similar, it'll be some sort of structure where you're still keeping these primetime matchups, Big Ten, SEC. I totally get that. But there's some backdoor way for teams 40 through 90 to still get into that. I don't know what that system will be, but you have to have game inventory matter for teams 40 through 90. If you're ESPN and Fox, that's how they make their money. If you go strictly to hey, hey, it's just the top 40 teams playing each other, and it's Texas, Michigan, it's Ohio State, Florida. That sounds good. Those games make a lot of money, but the long tail of that would crush college football and kill the importance of games 40 through 90, which would kill their inventory. Long-winded answer, but that's kind of my answer. Am I an OSU fan? Nah. Sorry. Oh, someone talking to someone else. Got it. Justin Tucker's been suspended 20 games. Ooh, there you go. Jay, do you think pocket passers will completely disappear from college game in the next 15 to 20 years? That is a great, great, great question. Completely disappear? No, I don't think so, because dual threat quarterbacks get minimized so quickly in the NFL when you can't run. And the NFL is going to always be the end all be all. And I do think winning from the pocket will continue to be the most important factor 15 to 20 years from now. So there's always going to be a place for the elite pocket passer type guys, period. But it's interesting. Like, I went to the Elite 11 last week, and so I saw the top 15 high school quarterbacks, and the demographic, or that's not the right word, the skill set for those quarterbacks is the landscape of the skill sets for those quarterbacks is completely different than when I was playing, or when I was at Elite 11 13 years ago. 13 years ago, we had 25 quarterbacks there. It was probably 21 pocket passers and then 4 run first guys. This year at Elite 11, it was probably, there was 15 guys there. There was probably, 9 pass first guys and 6 run first guys, which might not sound like an overwhelming difference, but it is. That's a big deal. The fact that the 15 best quarterbacks in high school right now, 6 of them are run first guys when you're a quarterback and your job is to throw. So I do think the trajectory of dual threat quarterbacks in college is going to be a thing because it's such a value add for your offense, but it will not completely take over the sport because there will always be a place for elite quarterback, elite pocket passers, because that will always be the number one factor in the NFL for the next decade or two, in my opinion. Have you had to take on Malik Murphy on his move to Oregon State, given their schedule, realistic path to the CFP? Isaac, it's funny. Malik Murphy was at Elite 11 last week. He's way taller than I thought, way bigger in general than I thought. My take is I don't know how the hell Oregon State got him. How much is Oregon State giving him an NIL? I actually haven't looked into that. How did Oregon State get him? He was a huge get in the portal. How was there not another big school in the Power 4 that did not want Malik Murphy? That was my first take. Good on Oregon State. I called a couple Oregon State games last year, so fired up for them. Love going back to Corvallis. But I think that is a fair take. Let me look at Oregon State's schedule, because you're right. If Oregon State wins out or they have one loss, they're probably going to be the best non group of 4 school to get in there. They play Cal and they play Texas Tech, so they got strength of schedule too, and Houston and Wake Forest, and then Washington State twice. Yeah. So with that schedule is probably going to be better than a Mountain West team, or what's the conference that Liberty's in? I always forget. AAC. Their strength, and Oregon. What am I talking about? So if Oregon State wins out, they are 100% in. If Oregon State has one loss, I think they're 100% in. If they have 2 losses, then they're probably out. I think that's just the reality of the situation that they're in. But if they go 1 loss and their 1 loss is to Oregon, that would mean they still have wins over Texas Tech, Cal, and Washington State twice, and Wake Forest. Yeah, they're Oregon State can lose the Civil War and still be in. I would say Oregon State, if they lost the Civil War, they're 100% in, because their strength. The reason I say it is their strength of schedule would be better than a undefeated Mountain West school. That strength of schedule would be better than a Boise State last year. Tay, yeah, I get it all the time. The joke on these lives is how many over-unders or how many Joe Burrow references can we get on this live? We probably had 30 today. Max, what do you think about the Panthers maybe making the playoffs? My hot take. That's a hot take. I don't think it'll happen. partly because I'm high on Michael Penix. I'm higher on Michael Penix than most people. The Saints are going to be bad though, so you could get that. And then the Bucks, that's tough. I love that though. Enjoying life. Big fan of Tetairoa McMillan. Big fan of Tetairoa McMillan. People saw that clip of him saying that he doesn't watch film. I guarantee for every 3 receivers drafted in the NFL, every one of them has that mentality of, I'm not a film grinder. I just go out there and run routes and give me the ball. He's not alone with that mentality. It's easy to like shit on him, but he's not alone with that mentality. He's a beast though. And what I'm excited is how Canales to see is how does Canales use him? Is he a slot guy and you try to have him be a mismatch on like a nickel corner? Because McMillan is big. I did a content thing with him this past fall. He is big hand, like huge frame. Do you do that, or is he an outside lane guy where you try to have him, use his big body on smaller corners? That'll be interesting. On that note, though, I got to log off. It's almost 1 p.m. I got to call at 1 p.m. This is fun. We were firing away with the questions. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at noon Pacific. Come hang out. These will be rocking and rolling when we get in season, which will be fun. And for those of you guys on TikTok, check out the YouTube long form. If you like my TikTok content, we're rocking and rolling with YouTube long form as well. But with that, I'll see you guys Thursday, and have a great rest of your day.